Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. The last month has been mostly new stuff we've never covered before, so I wanted to take some time today to touch on some old favorites. And I realized that it's been a little over 3 years since I last talked about Quantum Leap on the show, since that was the last time that we covered a Quantum Leap novel during the lead-in to the 100th episode in 2015. And that is way too long to wait for one of my favorite franchises. If you don't know what Quantum Leap is, Google it. This is like my third or fourth Quantum Leap video. I don't think I'm allowed to give a crash course on it anymore. You should know by now. Today's book is an interesting one, though. While other books featured fairly standard plots that were very similar to the show, and the last one covered Sam meeting a pre-Project Al, this one has both Sam and Al partake in the leap due to a freak lightning storm, which makes the story fairly unique compared to other Quantum Leap novels, hence why I picked it out of the huge list of tie-in novels. Plus, it was the only one that I could find in stock at a used book website. Anyway, that's enough prologue. It's time to leap into Quantum Leap Search and Rescue. The cover is, well, it's simultaneously better and worse than the other ones I've looked at. On the one hand, the cover actually has something going on apart from Sam. But, on the other hand, this Sam looks dead-eyed and inhuman, like a wax statue. The other covers weren't perfect, but at the very least, Sam and Al looked like real people and made realistic expressions. In this one, Sam looks, I don't know, bored, dazed. Other than that, we've got a scene of the crashed plane from the story on the cover, with the survivors crowded around it. The only weird thing is how Sam is looming over it like a vengeful god. And it was on that day that humanity received a grim reminder. Everything else is basically the same as all the other covers, the show's logo, the book's title, though one thing to note is that this, unlike the others, was not written by Ashley McConnell. It was written by Melissa Crandall, who, as far as I can tell, did a lot of tie-in work, considering that she also wrote Star Trek novels, both original series, and did a novelization of the pilot of the television series Earth 2, which, disappointingly for me, was not a series about Earth 2 from DC Comics. And she's still working today, doing work in horror anthologies. So the artwork of Scott Bakula kinda sucks, but other than that, the cover is pretty good. Let's get to the story. The story has two distinct plots that it follows, like Quantum Leap novels usually do, focusing on Sam and Al's plots separately, but in a unique turn of events, this novel's stories are actually connected, apart from being about Sam and Al. Similar to the Season 4 premiere, The Leap Home, there's a freak lightning storm that makes it so that Al joins Sam on the leap, by leaping himself. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. The story opens at Project Quantum Leap headquarters, where Ziggy tells Al and Gushy that Sam has leaped again, though they're having trouble getting a lock, which, if you've seen the show, is nothing new. For Sam, while it was instantaneous that he'd travel for the project, weeks could pass in between leaps for them. Although the novel points out the episode that Sam leaped into his Civil War-era ancestor, meaning that this story takes place at some point between that episode and the finale, if the fact that every episode ended on a cliffhanger was literal in the world of the show. The person who Sam leaped into arrives in the accelerator, and Al goes in to interview him to see if, despite the memory problems inherent with leaping, namely the Swiss cheese stuff, he remembers who he is and where he was, to facilitate locating Sam and information on why he leaped there. But there's a lightning storm going on, and while Al is in there, lightning strikes, and Al vanishes. He awakens to find himself trapped in the past, facing mirror images that were not his own. Al awakens in the body, or at least the physical space, the books vary, of Gordon Huckstep, a man currently on a plane that's crashing. This concerns Al because it is not the person from the waiting room, meaning that he hasn't swapped places with Sam as he has assumed, which means that Ziggy and Gushy have no Sam, no Al, and no way to track either of them through the leap. Oh boy, indeed. He's just lucky that he didn't leap into the cargo hold. The plane crashes in British Columbia, and most of the passengers and crew survive, save for one person, which isn't great, but it's not bad. Ziggy is able to get some information transmitted to them through their unique brainwaves, but can't really communicate, so Al gets the Cliff's Notes versions on what he and Sam are there to do, and Ziggy takes special care to mention that Lindell Freeman, who got injured during the crash, is important. Al finds himself having to rise to the occasion and lead everyone, keeping everyone alive until they get found, while trying to get his own bearings without any advisement from the project, since, in the original history, the entire party eventually dies of hypothermia before they can be found. Sam, meanwhile, has leapt into Philip Payne, a doctor, no doubt the father of Ophelia, and friend of Eric Freeman, an older man with leukemia, who's driving up to join the search party to find his daughter's plane, his daughter being Lindell. They're estranged because Eric didn't want Lindell to suffer when he died of a long drawn-out disease, so he kept his distance and estranged himself. But now that she's in danger, he's going, regardless of the fact that he's at risk of death. Going with Philip, a close friend, and his doctor, which Philip had implied during the short period that Al was in the waiting room with him. In the original history, after Lindell's death, Eric commits suicide, leading Ziggy to inform Sam that their mission is to aid the search party and ensure the survival of the party to put history right where it once went wrong. During the story, Sam butts heads with Eric because he's an ornery dude and refuses to listen to logic, wanting to get straight into the search without eating or drinking or taking care of himself in any way. A normal parental response, mind you, but for someone with cancer, he's barely any help as it is, and he won't be any good diminished even further. He also has to keep Eric secret from the local police, since they won't let him go out if they know he has cancer, but Eric won't be kept from his daughter. When they arrive, they meet Chris Gunn, the leader of the search party, and stop at a diner, meeting Grandfather. Grandfather! Not that one. He's a local blind Inuit man and Chris's grandfather, who seems to know things about Sam and Eric that he wasn't told. And his name is actually He Who Sees, but if I revealed that from the start, I wouldn't have gotten to make that Doctor Who joke, so... Sam has some strange dreams that seem to be connected to Al, and He Who Sees gives him a bear medallion, which I assume means that if he kills a bear, the spirits will turn him into one. On the plus side, it'll also mean that he'll meet some wisecracking moose, played by the Mackenzie brothers, and a smaller bear who would later go on to co-star in the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. No joke, by the way, Coda was the Angry Video Game Nerd's friend in that movie. Small world, eh? Al, meanwhile, has to deal with Gideon Diagonalt, a zoologist, another survivor, and one who is a giant pain in the ass, and also Faye Marlowe, an environmental lobbyist who has gone into her own little world due to the shock and stress involved with the crash, which puts her at risk because she's not focused on survival. While Al eventually manages to get Faye back to the land of the surviving with the help of the other passengers, Dan Dodds, the pilot, and Hugh Bassey, a nature photographer, Gideon continues to be a problem, leaving the camp in the middle of the night, necessitating Al to go after him to bring him back safely. While out on the search, a bear attacks, and Gideon refuses to shoot the bear since it's just a mother protecting her cubs, meaning that Al ends up like that guy from that viral video where the bear attacks him, leaves, and then comes back for round 2. Faye, thankfully, it turns out, was a registered nurse before becoming a lobbyist, so she's able to take charge and help stabilize Al's condition. Sam and Eric don't fare much better in the search and are nearly attacked by a bear as well, but the medallion seems to save them, since when Sam grabs onto it, the bear stops and loses interest. When Chris comes to help them, Eric reveals that he had some sort of vision of a location near a river, a place that Chris recognizes, and when they search it out, they find the crashed plane and the survivors, implying a slightly supernatural solution to the problem. And just as soon as they're reunited, and Sam gets to touch Al for the first time since he leaped, their mission ends and they both leap, Al returning to Stallion's Gate, New Mexico, and Sam going off on his next leap, leap, possibly into Elvis or into himself in Kokeberg. The novel ends with Al ruminating on his experience and the revised history, where Eric and Lindell reconciled, Dan Dodds died in a plane crash, Gideon commits suicide, Faye and Hugh marry before she passes away of cancer, and Sam and Al's hosts both end up alive and happy in their lives. Sam and Al are written amazingly well, and it's interesting to see them without the other to bounce off of, since the nature of the show was their banter during the leap. They're on their own, and they get to shine in their own ways. It's especially interesting to see what Al does when he's not shielded by his holographic status. He gets mauled by a bear, but still manages to fight it out to save Lindell and the others and find Sam. We also get some hints at the end of Al being completely changed by the experience, as he limps, despite his actual legs not being damaged by the bear attack. Sam, on the other hand, is written basically the same way he always is, choir boy mentality, and super nice and affable in the face of the adversity that he has, and is perfectly in character, since he's doing what he always does, dealing with obstinate people in the service of fixing history for the better. It's just fortunate that he only has to deal with Eric being ornery and kind of a dick, and not buying into the mysticism of Chris and the Inuit town, and not racism like has been the case in other stories. I do think that the author has a great handle on the characters, and I'm actually pretty interested to read her Star Trek books, to see if she also has a handle on those characters like she did Sam and Al. And she did manage to do something different with them, and not having the ability to just have Al exposit info to Sam, and have Sam figure stuff out with Al's help. She set them apart, and that sets the book apart because it's a new frontier for the characters, and it really enhances the story, since it's simultaneously different, but also something I could imagine seeing on the actual show. Not that they had the budget for a plane crash, but still. In the previous few books, Al also had parts that separated him from Sam, but here it is way more justified than just Al getting freaked out that Sam is interfering in his life directly. The other characters are also written very well. Gideon is exactly that guy. That one guy who can't think of anyone but himself. And Faye is written very realistically, where she shuts down after the crash, which is a natural response. God knows I wouldn't function well in the middle of a frozen wasteland, and the author writes everyone pretty realistically. Eric and Lindell especially are written exactly like an estranged father and daughter, especially with how she snaps at Al when he tries prodding her to ensure the relationship is repaired. I also liked how patient Chris was with Sam and Eric during the search, and there's some good moments between her and Sam. There's a lot of good moments between a lot of the characters, good quiet moments, like between Eric and Sam and Al and Lindell and the rest of the survivors, and despite not getting a lot of development, the others like Hugh and Dan Dodds and Chris's partner are also good for the stuff that they contribute. From a character standpoint, this book is full of well-written ones. The pacing is great, and the story never feels like it slows down, something I feel like some of the other ones did in successive reads. I've never been able to make it through the Prelude novel after my first reading of it. I feel like it's too slow compared to the other ones. The fact that we split off and see the two stories works better here than it has in the other ones, although if I had one complaint, it would be that I think Sam's story is less developed, since they basically give Al the main leap, and Sam was the secondary plot. It's more of an Al novel, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, I just think it should have been equal focus. But the story otherwise was very tense and very exciting, not only with the tenseness that came from Al being in constant danger, be it just at the crash site or after the mauling, but also with Eric's cancer. It makes it a wild ride of a story. A few of the others I'd lose steam halfway through and it got boring, but this one never wavered. It was always making me want to turn the pages, and I probably took the shortest time to finish it than I had any other Quantum Leap book that I've read. But that's not to say that there isn't any good comedy in this rather dire book. Yeah, there's a bear mauling, and yeah, people die, but there are some good jokes and lighthearted moments to balance out the dire straits. Another complaint I have is that it feels rushed at the end, but that's more of a problem with the nature of the format. Because most Quantum Leap episodes ended with a quick wrap-up because Sam leaves immediately after his mission is fulfilled, so there's not a lot of time for showing the developments. I would have liked to see more of the rescue, but that's not what the story was about. It was about the journey to the rescue, and that's okay. Overall, the book is fantastic. It's got a great premise that really lends itself well to interesting character interactions. We get introduced to twice the amount of unique people as normal for a Quantum Leap story, and we get interesting interactions between them. And everyone, apart from Gideon, is really good, and you feel for their plights. Now, this didn't fit in anywhere else, but there's a bit I really like where Chris is reading a newspaper article about Project Quantum Leap and laughs about how ridiculous the premise is, time travel and all that, despite Sam himself not only creating it, but now living it right in front of her. I highly recommend this book if you're a Quantum Leap fan because it's a brilliant book. In fact, it's probably my favorite of the Quantum Leap books that I've read. It's unique, the characters are interesting, and the premise is cool enough to drag you in and keep you turning the pages. Plus, the story features a bear-mauling Al Calavici and a touching story of a father being reunited with his daughter. What else could you ask for in a book? If you aren't a Quantum Leap fan, well, I can't recommend the show enough, but you probably won't like the book without knowing Sam and Al's connection beforehand. As a Quantum Leap fan, this is one of the high points of the book series. There's a lot of crap out there, like Mirror's Edge, or Sam doing the nasty and the pasty, or Sam being responsible for Al's fashion sense, but this one is one of the good ones, despite the cover being a little off. The story inside is ultimately fantastic and makes me miss the show even more than I already did. I should talk about Quantum Leap more often. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more of the literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comments section below. Oh, and if you want to be notified of new uploads, you can hit that bell icon. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time for... Well, remember how much fun I had with Alien 2 Sulaterra? Well, we're gonna try something similar to that with God Monster of Indian Flats.